Tunadai extension na hiyo plug.
Ameendea muulize nani? Muulize kama ameshughulika. Ni swali. Sina food. Kuna mwenye amekome kama amekuja kawaida. Hata duka hapa. So hii pekee ndio itakuwa ama hizi mbili nikidhani jamaa anacheza kiesha kama bro. Chunga bro. Four. Inaanza na C. Spacing ikoje pale? Afa kuleta hapa ndo asimame huko.
uko sure man?
Cheza. Bado.
Ama kitu imenyongwa. Imenyongwa. Yeah, we are to test it. And we need him to remove the music.
The type. Huh?
Removing the music.
Sasa bana hajakaa bana. Kuna mbwa.
Simu yako iko silent. Simu yako iko silent. Disikivu nilikuwa nimefanya jana. Pia hiyo ni amani. Ilikuwa sawa kwa sasa. In fact ilifanya tu
Jamaa sana ameenda. Jamaa sana ameenda. Ameenda? Wenye wasangara sasa tafuta hapo nje. Kama tupige bila.
Nitapiga aje?
Itakuwa noma kwako. Sinitafuta tu liwa hii. Kwa sasa unamtafuta ndo tujuane aje. Kitu kingine hapa itakuwa unaleta shida.
Nakuja tu dakika moja. Nimeita. Sawa. Nimekaa. Nimeita. Nimeita na boss yake. Bro. Nyapa.
Tusaidie hapa. Wanda tulikuwa naye jana. Iko na hapa.
connection yake inaenda wapi?
Hapa
Acha tutoke hapa hivi kwanza.
Sasa si tuko kwa kamera bwana.
Kama nje.
Yeah, ni fight. Hapa ndio niko na stress.
I don't even do that. I do this on glass. How are you? You tell me where. Hi.
Inadu.
Treble.
Ongezea kila kitu. Meski.
I don't
Fortunately, you have to start. Some other time.
Rezo. Unasema to start. Unasema to start.
Iligoma.
MC. Nafikiria MC. HDMI ni ya
Ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. Distinguished guests, honorable members. I think we've all had ourselves some breakfast and we're now ready to start. Let's remember that this is the official launch of the Lenga Ugaidi in Talanta Season 5. This is the 5th edition of this particular event. And to begin with, what we'd like to do is start off with the Kenyan National Anthem. So if we may kindly stand. Thank you very much. You may now have your seats. Now, a couple of house rules. Let's still remember to always remain wearing our masks. Let's try to maintain the government COVID-19 protocols. The guest rooms to the left outside, if you would like to help yourself. My name is Lenga Ugaidi. I'll be your moderator for this morning. And I can see we are starting a bit behind schedule, so we'll not waste too much time. We'd quickly like to let you know that this is the 5th edition of the Lenga Ugaidi Talanta competition. This is a short competition that has been used as a monitoring and evaluation tool for counter-terrorism activities over the last few years. It has been established that over the couple of years, this event has grown. It started off just here in Kenya and ended up going to Djibouti and Somalia, and now actually includes 5 different countries. Remember, this particular event aims to do something very simple. Now, we understand that the youth are the most vulnerable at this point in time when it comes to violent extremism. So this whole event aims to allow the youth to spearhead the counter-radicalization conversation through their talents, through arts, through their own language and understanding, to engage the youth actively in fighting against radicalization and terrorism, to create awareness and promote continuous conversation by the youth, for the youth, on violent extremism, and to build skills for employment using the talents that they have and the arts that they know. Now, this particular event has been made possible by Lenga Ugaidi, Foxstone Media, IGAD, Google, Women Against Terrorism, Horn, Brave, CSCR, Arigato International, and many others. We'll keep on mentioning them as we continue. Right now we are live on YouTube and on Facebook. For those of you who are watching us from different parts of Africa, welcome. If you're not and you have some people you'd like to watch, you can check us out on our Facebook page and live on the Lenga Ugaidi YouTube channel. Now, to start us off, we'll have we'll start off with Dr. Hassan Kanenja from the Horn Institute of Strategic Studies. Let's please give him a big round of applause as he comes up to the stage. We've given you breakfast. It is really the morning. Can we give him a big round of applause? So just continue. This one. Yeah, this is for what is on air. Okay.
Yeah, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Is it my microphone? Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you. Yeah, when I was asked to make some opening remarks and to avoid the tragedy that many professors and scholars do of talking endlessly like politicians, I decided to jot down a couple of remarks last night to be able to preserve time, not to mention we've started a little bit late. 20 years since September 11 attacks, and 23 years since U.S. Embassy attack in Nairobi, Kenya, the threat posed by terrorism and violent extremism has never been greater, despite determined efforts at eliminating it. The reason for this persistence is attributed in part to the resilience of terror groups, but also fundamentally to the application of traditional approaches to a complex and dynamic problem of terrorism and violent extremism. In blood and treasure, our nations and communities have paid in kind. In Kenya, we've had our share of experience with terror attacks. We have lost hundreds of our fellow citizens to terror attacks whose impact goes beyond the immediate and have long-term effect on our economy, our health, and our social well-being. Yet the problem is still here with us. The enemy, while not invincible, has become a dark cloud hovering over our collective sense of safety and security. Indeed, no country in this region has been spared the pain of terror attacks. Today, as we speak, terror groups are spread from the Maghreb to the Sahel, in the North and West Africa, to the Horn of Africa, from DRC to Cabo Delgado in Mozambique. Incidentally, most of these attacks are conducted by young men and women who serve both as recruiters, informers, as well as foot soldiers for these extremist outfits. It's for this reason that we needed a paradigm shift from state-centric approaches to community-focused ones, especially one that involves the youth, who are not only often the most at risk of radicalization into violent extremism, but are also and can also be effective messengers in countering violent extremism and terrorism messaging. And this is where your role as youth, as citizens, and as digital leaders, especially in the information age, and as peer influencers, come in. Indeed, this is your war, because much of your future as young people depends on winning this war. Lenga Ugaidi in Talanta initiative is a competition involving short film with countering violent extremism and terrorist messages. In its 5th year, the competition has so far attracted thousands of submissions. Dozens of participants have won millions worth of prizes by producing content that advances the cause of fighting extremism. Using their individual and sometimes group talent, the impact of this competition indeed has been notable, especially through their messaging that often reaches millions, not just in Kenya, but across the Horn of Africa region. Today is yet another day to launch another competition, with opportunity to win hundreds of thousands worth of prizes while contributing to the safety and security of our communities, of our families, and of our nations. Without peaceful communities, there can't be progress. Without progress, opportunity vanishes, and so do our collective futures. In the here and now, we have an opportunity to write our history, not according to the enemy who seek to divide us and destroy our dreams, but a history that reflects our highest aspirations and hopes, because we are the change that we seek. Please welcome to the 5th edition of Lenga Ugaidi in Talanta competition. Now may I use this opportunity to invite our next presenter, our next speaker, a very accomplished patriotic Kenyan who has traversed the world, taught in the US universities for more than 30 years, and immediate former Vice Chancellor of KCA University and a Professor of Defense and Security, Professor Noah Midamba. Karibu.
Thank you, my friend Hassan Kanenje and Dr. Mustafa. We've been together for a long time on NTV talking about national security. And by the way, we're coming back again. Yeah. I am so grateful that I'm here with you because I was asked to talk about the efforts that have been undertaken. But I want to take it in a different angle because I want to directly speak to the young people who are here and to their soul and how each one of us can make a difference. I lived in the United States for over 40 years. I traverse the world. In other words, I've traveled anywhere you can think about. Live with the Eskimos, South America, all over Europe, former Soviet Union. I spent 8 months as a visiting professor in China. And so I get some ideas about what we are as people and where we need to go. So my thrust of what I want to say this morning is that we are one people with one purpose. And then now let's dissect that to find what that is. We come from Stone Age, somewhere in Turkana, which you know, the first, where the first man evolved. And we learned to use stone, basically to kill more animals and to make our food better. And we also learned to use stone as an arm to attack and conquer others. And then we learned to make fire, to make our food taste better. And then we learned to use all kinds of herbs to make it even better. And then we spread all over the world. Some went to Europe, some traveled from here to Southeast Asia and the rest, because it was one continent before it was divided into several continents. And so we are Eskimos, we are English, we are Japanese, we are Chinese, we are Indians, we are black, white, brown, and all colors that you can think about. And then we injected a number of things in the middle, religion. And then we created tribalism. We were one people, but then we became tribes, and we became clan. And then we further divided that. We created kingdoms, and we created the kings. And in Europe, the kings live on top of the tower, on top of the hill, because that was a defensive line where you can roll big stones to kill your enemy as they're coming to you. Then we have people called devil worshippers. We created big empires around the world. Wonderful environment to live. Wonderful monument. And the devil worshippers and the rest further divide us and say, if you are a Christian, you are an infidel. And if you are a Muslim, you're no good. And if you are this, you are that. And therefore, then we have to destroy these people. The consequences is that the powerful empires that exist through Alexander Great and all others crumble. The Roman Empire crumbled. The Tower of Babel crumbled. And we are where we are. And we continue crumbling and rebuilding all over the world. We are rebuilding right now in Kenya. But someone else don't like that. Someone else would like to take this monument where we are sitting and tear it down. And then you stop to ask a question. What is this for? What exactly do these people want? Watch what is happening in Afghanistan. A woman cannot think and cannot lead. And must be maintained where the feudal empire, where the women are. I want to say something to you here. Josephine daughter, a Kenyan, who I sponsored to go to school in America, was sent to Moi University to study and become a teacher. And Josephine wanted to study aeronautic engineering. And so, when she was sent to Moi University, this girl was about to commit suicide. And her father and my father were friends here in Nairobi. And one morning, my father called me and said, my son, I want you to find a place, aeronautic engineering, for Josephine. And the university where I was did not offer engineering, except we offer aerospace study. And I quickly did that. But we brought her to a different program, but as close to engineering as possible. And my mind was to get Josephine to study exactly what Josephine wanted to do. So eventually, we got an opportunity in Atlanta at aerospace study. Then she went to Stanford. And ladies and gentlemen, today Josephine is one of the American Space Command. Not only a member, but one of the leaders. And if Josephine come here right now, she will be surrounded by all American security, because she's one of the best. How in the world can we say that a woman has no mind? That their job is to stay at home and make babies? And that's their life. Josephine Kulei from Samburu was one of the most popular, one of the tallest, handsome, beautiful, was performing in New York and dedicated her life to come back here and rescue 11-year-old and 10-year-old girls in Samburu who are married to men who are 69 and 70-year-old. By the time they're 11 years old, they have children. And they have no hope for their future. So Josephine walked in my office one day at KCA University and said, Prof, you are going to be our chair of Samburu Girls Foundation. Then I said, but you know, I'm so busy, Josephine, do I have option to say, no, you don't have option. Now, it is 5 years that I've been chairman of the Samburu Girls Foundation. We have built dorms for the ladies. We have built primary school. We have built secondary school. And this weekend, I'm going up there for us to open one of the most modern sport complex society for the community. Because people were telling me, no, you cannot change these people. This is their way it is, this is their life. And that's how it is. And we say, no, we can change these people one at a time. Singapore, as a country, didn't have anything. South Korea did not have anything compared to what we have here. North Korea, which is shooting missiles all over the place, has half GNP, gross national product of Kenya. But they're shooting missiles. Every day they shoot missiles. And then the goose step. I'm bringing you to think about how we need, each one of us, to preserve what we have created as people and counteract the devil worshippers, these evildoers who want to destroy our environment and want to bring us back to the Stone Age where we've come. And we have enough now to destroy the world many, many times. When I spent time at the East-West Center in Hawaii before my trip to China, I picked up 3 things about the Buddhist, which are beautiful, very beautiful. So I've said this very widely with a lot of people. The Buddhists talk about self-control is strength. Number 2, they said right thought is the mastery. And lastly, they talk about calmness is power. And so I want you to personalize that. And I want you to think about that. Let me end by saying this. The Samburu men that have been cultured to marry these young ladies, young girls that are 11-year-old. By the time they're 12, they have children. We're changing them one stone at a time by appealing and educating these older people who in turn turn around and help other people. And so the people destroying us, the people having devil thinking about destroying our culture and our empire right now, have to be educated one by one, especially young people who are busy on social media. That's what we have to do. Let me end with a message from my father. And my father taught me the message that I live with the rest of my life. He was a powerful man. His father was a wrestler, was 6'7", and I'm told when he wrestled, he pick you and send you away, and don't worry where you land. And nobody wrestled him. So my father was very tough, and I'm tough. So he said to me, my son, if they close your door, go through the window. If they close the window, go through the wall. And if they close the wall, go through the roof, for your God is always with you. We have engraved that on his grave in Homa Bay district because I want people to learn. What my father was saying is every one of us can be Josephine Coley, can be Josephine Ndota, and can make a difference, a very big difference among young people who are being confused because of money, because of good living, because of these devilish promises. That does not work. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's give the proper big hand of applause, please. Now, before we go into the second session of Changing Trends, Violent Extremism in the Horn of Africa, we'd like to have a live performance. But meanwhile, let's kindly remember the fact that we still have a couple of drinks. If you'd like to get yourself a warm beverage, kindly feel free. Feel at home. We're not counting how many times you're going there. So the cameras are on, whoever is talking on the stage, so don't worry about that. Just try and relax, be easy. Remember, we're here to learn. There's a lot of wisdom in this room. Many of the speakers are coming up and giving us a lot of information that we'll continue to take back to our different organizations. Right now, let's put our hands together for the 97th band and Freedom Amoka. Hi people, makofi bana.
All protocol observed. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Fred Onamoka. I'm a spoken word artist. I do spoken word poetry. And I'm going to give you a performance on Lenga Ugaidi. My piece was the one which won on poetry last year. And I'm very grateful for this chance to perform in front of you. So I want this to be engaging in such a way that we're going to have a chorus. So in this chorus will be Lenga, Lenga Ugaidi, Lenga, Lenga, Lenga Ugaidi, Lenga, Lenga, Lenga Ugaidi, Lenga, Lenga, Lenga Ugaidi. Are you with me? Yes. Yeah, so we'll start. Lenga, Lenga, Lenga Ugaidi, Lenga, Lenga, Lenga Ugaidi, Lenga, Lenga, Lenga Ugaidi, Lenga, Lenga, Lenga Ugaidi. It is not the choice of different people to join terrorist groups, but the challenges they face on a day-to-day basis. Si yesterday ulikuwa chuo kikuu, ukashindwa kusikia na mkuu, ona sasa umevunjika guu. Today huna kazi, ukaamua kukaa. Unataka vitu za haraka. Yet there is no shortcut to success. Do you want your life to be cash shop ndo si achieve your success? Amoni kubali kuchochwa na politician ujoin kikundi chake cha magaidi akawafund. Ukiuawa pesa watarifund kwa familia yako. Si hata ungetumia talanta yako join hata band, utengeneze your brand, upate pesa. Umesahau ukikufa familia yako ndo itahandwa. Swali ni familia yako itakuwa imerudi nyuma ama imeenda mbele kama Injili? Hakuna dini inayofunza wafuasi wake kuchukua uhai wa mtu. Si hata the Quran says, whoever kills an innocent life is as if he has killed the whole of humanity. Hisi humor itabidi umetii. Aye. Wanasema an idle mind is a devil workshop, na most youth shadows up to kontani bila hustle. Wanasema an idle mind is a devil workshop, na most youth shadows up to kontani bila hustle. Life kwetu imekuwa kama ball tuna juggle, cause imekuwa hard kuihandle. Tumika kama prey play this game because we have the energy to play. Lenga, Lenga, Lenga Ugaidi, Lenga, Lenga, Lenga Ugaidi, Lenga, Lenga, Lenga Ugaidi, Lenga, Lenga, Lenga Ugaidi. Salam, salam, salam. Nimekam ku preach peace cause world is no longer safe. Daily news nitara headline shachoka kuchimba hizi graves. Tumeitwa different names. Tumeitwa different names na kuwekea mablames. Daily news nitara headlines cause tumeitwa different names na kuwekea mablames. Tukivaa hii kanzu inakuwa noma kufika some places. I want to apologize to the Muslim community because not all of them are terrorists and not all terrorists are Muslims. My safety iko compromised. Hata nikiandika my life composition siwezi kuwa na a happy ending. Kupatikana katikati ya attack. Story of my life ifike the end. Seeing people die makes me pick up my line to ask for help because maybe I'm the next in line. I want to say my last prayers and say my goodbye to my family. Because the way you're giving them support by spreading their videos on social media imefanya my dear was equal social because the way you're supporting them. Lenga, Lenga, Lenga Ugaidi, Lenga, Lenga, Lenga Ugaidi, Lenga, Lenga, Lenga Ugaidi, Lenga, Lenga, Lenga Ugaidi. Kumadana si solution, ku preach peace no to save out from terror illusion. Pray for Dusit, pray for Westgate, pray for Mandela bus attack, pray for Mogadishu, Paris, pray for Afghanistan. Hizi ndio prayers zimekuwa skoma tukisali, but still bado tunajiuliza maswali. Why carry this attack nani mwatuma? Why kill an innocent life? Why kill innocent life bila huruma. Why can't this attack me nani mawatuma? Manze story na tiuma. How can an estimate of 26,000 people die from terrorism global in 2017? Hizi ndo stories zinajirudia kwa akili ya jamii, but maeneo ushindi kasi tutakuwa mawakili ya amani, you and me. Lenga ugaidi. Lenga ugaidi. Lenga ugaidi. Lenga ugaidi. Friends, the poet. Peace.
Let's clap for him one more time. Now, we understand that the trends of violent extremism has changed over the years. Many of us were born before there was anything like internet, before computers existed. We have learned a lot over the years based on what we have seen through research and studies. However, the enemy is just as sharp, just as fast, thinks and works twice as hard as you are, because they want to bring down whatever you have put up. Now, for us to understand the changes over these times, we'd like to get our next speaker. She'll be coming in to talk about the changing trends of violent extremism in the Horn of Africa, evaluating the changing dynamics of violent extremism, taking us through 2015 to 2020. Now, our next guest is Rehema Zaid Obuyu, the Programs Manager, Integrated Initiatives for Community Empowerment. Let's give her a big round of applause.
Thank you so much. Sorry. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All protocols observed. I'm expecting someone to share my presentation on the screen, please. Maybe if I'm just to continue, my presentation will focus on 4 agendas, and the first one will be looking at the peace and security trends in Africa, and the second one is gender dynamics. Third will be on youth, and I'm not lucky to be a lecturer like Dr. Mustafa and the rest. So I remember very little things. But I'm just trying to, at least to move on.
It's got the role of the youth.
I just don't want to share this one. Yes, this one.
This one.
Maybe as they continue to prepare, we can continue. Lenga. This part is Lenga Ugaidi. Lenga Ugaidi. Lenga Ugaidi, Lenga Ugaidi, Lenga. Lenga Ugaidi, Lenga Ugaidi.
Okay, there we go. It's good.
So this is from there.
Watch on this.
Oh. So,
Use the down keys.
okay. So my presentation will be very precise. I'll be focusing on evaluating the changing dynamics of VE in the Horn of Africa, and the period is 2015 to 2020, and we'll focus on 4 thematic areas, and that is 1, looking at the trends of peace and security in Africa. You can hear me well, everyone? Yes. Okay. Policies on returnees, the gendered approaches, role of youth, and then what are some of the key takeaways. I've added mine. I'll also be happy to get more input from you, even if it is later. And first, maybe we look at, on trends of peace and security, we look at the impact of COVID-19, and the first aspect will be on governance and democracy, how COVID, for example, has affected governance and democracy. We've seen some tension at the Horn of Africa. For example, the Tigray crisis in Ethiopia, and even here within our country, we have some tension, although we've gotten into a habit where we like to assume that everything is okay. There is tension, for example, on issues with postponement of elections. It's bringing a lot of tension. The second one is radicalization. Risk factors of radicalization have increased. Issues like maybe in our homes, for example, issues like increased cases of gender-based violence. And in a way also this affects the future generation. If our kids are observing the parents fighting, in the long run this will impact the mental, not only the mental health of the parents, but also of the kids. And there's something called adverse childhood experiences. So if these children continue to experience trauma as a result of experiences in their homes, the likelihood that these kids in future might become violent is very high, and there's a lot of risks of radicalization that have been brought about by COVID. I'll just mention a few. For example, having our kids online for a long time, and the economic factor as well, and many more. So I've just mentioned a few. And the third one is on the trends of online radicalization. On this aspect, we look on cybersecurity, that now everyone is online. Even my 4-year-old is now online, and there are many questions from the kids. Sometimes we leave these children unattended. And I'm a parent, I'm a young parent, and I've also been struggling with my daughter. Like, Mom, you're always online. Why do you want to control what I'm watching, my content? And like, it's been a struggle. Sometimes it causes tension, but how many parents do you think follow up? The kids also want to be adult, and they want to do the same things that we do. And also the gaps brought about by the pandemic. VE groups are very good in manipulating gaps. For example, I would say maybe the economic factors. We've not had our kids in school for a long time. How many parents who do have time to give quality care to their kids? Like, here you are with your kids and say, okay, now that we are all at home, this is the best time for me as a mother. I'll mention mothers most of the time because I'm one and I enjoy parenting. So as a mother, how much time do you have to make observations of your kids' behavior? So there has been a lot of tension, and considering that even parents themselves have not been happy because of the new normal. You know, we are all scared. I was not lucky. I lost my 2 parents. So there's been, because of the pandemic, so there's been a lot of tension. So we've not been happy. And in most cases, we might leave our children unattended, or we might even transfer the trauma to our kids. So there are cases of unhealed trauma, which all these can be factors in increasing risks of radicalization amongst our youth. The second aspect on the trends on peace and security is we are looking at how VE is evolving. For example, there is a belief that the international space is shrinking. But when it comes to Africa, there is an indicator like violent extremism is expanding in Africa based on the statistics that I've shared here on the number of attacks, fatalities. So we need, as Africa, we need to be worried on what is happening on the local context. And then we appreciate the gains and the things that are happening at the international community, but it is very important that we narrow down to Africa. And based on the information that is shared here on expansion of VE groups or terror groups, I don't like to say Islamic groups, because it's like I always feel like we are giving blanket condemnation to a certain religion. At a personal level, I usually feel guilty, and I'm like, no, because there's Islam in me, and when I hear that, like now we have become terrorists, so we are killing other people. So I really don't like this word Islamic State. I wish they can find another name so that they can protect people like me and others. So we've seen the expansion here, and because of time, I don't want to get very detailed. I just want to give broad overview, and then maybe the presentations can be shared later. So we've seen the expansion in terms of how it has moved to different countries, and even the local struggles that we have in our country, Kenya, those are enough indicators that it is not easy for us as Africa, because everything that we talk about, everybody's talking about violent extremism. I think sometimes I feel like we talk more of violent extremism than the way we talk about our daily meals, our basic needs, just our basic needs. So this is really a worrying trend for us. And then the third thematic area is on policies on returnees. We have experts here, they can advise better. But from my experience working on violent extremism for over 10 years, I've had lots of complaints from the ground that there is lack of coherent national or international policies. The issue of questionable amnesty, this was quoted by UNDP in 2019, but this is the true picture on the ground. So people are not sure. Maybe they don't. I'm not sure if it is only known by the expert. You stand a better chance to tell us today. But as far as we are concerned, from the grassroots level, from the people we are working with, we are not very sure about amnesty and how it works. And from where I sit, I feel that if this issue is resolved, we can use amnesty as a tool for conflict resolution. We can use amnesty to bring social cohesion. We cannot decide to remain divided for the rest of our life. We cannot lose our kids just like that. We need them back, because we are the mothers, we are the ones who carry these young men in our wombs, and the love of a mother never goes away. However bad your son is, you'll always want to have them back. So we feel that if it is handled well, then it can bring reconciliation. And I'm sure even our young people, we've had testimonies, they regret once they go to Somalia, and they really wish to come back home. So we need collective effort, and we can adopt case studies of Colombia, Indonesia, South Africa, Uganda, where they used amnesty to find peace with rebel movements. On gendered approaches, I'm very passionate about women leadership, and especially on matters related to VE. So I put emphasis on identifying and prioritizing women-led solutions. It's unfortunate that today only one woman is speaking. I'm not proud to be here alone. I would wish to have more women come to speak, especially on matters related to VE. We should not only be restricted to work in our homes and we are told that we are best in detecting. We are just confined in our homes and we are told that we are the best in detecting early warning signs and all that. And we should not feel comfortable. I think women should have meaningful engagement at all levels. And when it comes to issue of rehabilitation and reintegration, it is important that we adopt the public health approach. This means that we look for best ways on how we'll integrate these women back, plus maybe their children, and all those people maybe who are connected to these women, so that we can have our society back in order. And because you can never separate a mother from their kid. For example, a woman goes to Somalia, she conceives, and the child is there. So it is good that this approach is inclusive and embraced by all stakeholders. And this statement was echoed by UNDP in UNDP 2019. And just to emphasize on women, meaningful engagement at all levels. Sometimes people just use women for statistics. I've observed this. It depends. Are we involving these women? Is it at the kitchen? Or when it is on VE, is it only a data entry or data collection? Or you want these women to be researchers? Will you feel proud if you have women who are researchers? Like what our brother here was saying, the lady you were talking about. So we need to celebrate our sisters when they make strides. And we should not just restrict women as data clerks, data collectors. No. Let's try to support them. I know sometimes it's not easy for women. We are struggling with many issues. You are a mother. It's not easy to study. Like, you don't have much time to study, but you are still making efforts. So the journey of a woman is not easy. Like today when I was coming here, I was like thinking, should I come or I should stay with my son who is sick, my 4-year-old? He said, Mommy, please. And make sure you don't go for 4 days. Said, please come back today, don't go for 4 days. I told him I'll come. So it's really a struggle. And when your son tells you like that, you feel sad. You say, why does he think that I'll go for long? So that emotional attachment to our families is also a struggle on its own. So you are struggling to take care of your family. Here I'm struggling to work. You're struggling with many issues. So it's not easy for women. And let's support them. And when it comes to young people, let's try to support them so that they come up with practical, innovative ways. And considering youth bulge, let's try to also engage our youth meaningfully. Let's guide them. Let's attach them to mentors. And we should know that youth are more exposed to their vulnerability is high. They say trigger happy. Like youth want to explore everything. So it is good, like they have mentors and programs such as Lenga Ugaidi na Talanta will be ideal in mitigating risks. And one of my key takeaways is the do no harm approach. Let's be well keen on local context, maintaining relationships, and being keen on the dynamics. Let's not impose solutions to communities, and protecting health, well-being, and human rights. When you go to communities, let's leave them better than the way we found them. And I think on women, I also forgot a very important point on research. Research is a very important component, because without data,
Thank you very much. Let's give one more round of applause. I think she's brought up quite a number of key issues, how we need to involve ladies, women in this particular fight against terrorism. I should say it's very simple. I mean, look at how much time the parents spend with the children at home. Mothers end up spending more time with the kids than we ever will. And they say nobody knows their child better than a mother. So if you arm the mother, if you equip the mother, if you invest in the mother, we can actually try and beat this whole terrorism aspect. Now, it's very easy for us to sit and talk about a youthful event without involving the youth themselves. Now, this whole event, as you can even see, is Lenga Ugaidi, Talanta. Those of us who still have the talents that they use are the youth. Let's be very honest. Some of us no longer invest or participate in what used to find as fun. Now, to help us understand and bring in the youth, would like to invite Faisal Kasim, who's a media personality and a youth leader, and is a manager at the Jamia Training Institute. Would like him to come up and just enlighten us a bit more about the role of the youth, because remember, everything that we're doing right now is for the youth. We are handing over to the youth, and if we do not share the knowledge and learnings that we have over the years, then this will be a lost battle. Thank you very much. Makofi yake as he comes up, please.
All protocols observed. Good morning. As you've been rightly told, my name is Faisal Kasim, and sorry. Apologies for that. All protocols observed. Good morning. As it has been rightly communicated, my name is Faisal Kasim. Of course, my brother Yusuf gave me an introduction that I think is way much above the event this morning. Asante sana Yusuf. Thanks so much for this invite. Just like the previous presenter, I was called yesterday around 6 p.m. when I was attending a funeral just in Mombasa, just from a funeral. I lost my uncle and then been reminded about the event, so I just had to make my way straight from the airport. So apologies for how I look and the other issues. These are from the burial yesterday. Nonetheless, it's an honor to be here this morning and actually share a few bits and pieces from the youth's perspective and a leader's perspective for as far as Lenga Ugaidi using talent is concerned. Terrorism is a disease that has no religion, has no ethnicity, and respects no boundaries. That is terrorism. And it comes in different ways and shapes. Unfortunately, we are living in a society where we are almost normalizing the whole act of terrorism and actually associating it with a particular ethnicity or religion. And the worst part is that as a society, we are accepting the profiling. We are accepting the victimization. When we see a particular group being profiled or victimized, then the rest of us on social media and on social lifestyles, we accept it. We normalize it. Quite unfortunate. Quite unfortunate. The day we realize that this is a common enemy, and at the end of the day, it needs all of us together as a unit, as a team, to fight it, we address it as one, that's the day we are going to defeat this enemy. That is the day. We are going to get the wisdom from the old and the energy and the talent from the young. The day we are going to capitalize on our strength as a people. That is the day we are going to fight this war and win. That is the day. I must commend this initiative of using talent. I must commend this initiative. Because guess what? Over 90% of suspected perpetrators of these acts of terrorism are youth, young people. Some of them known to us in these rooms. I hope I'll be safe to say this, that one of the people who was suspected, or rather the bodies that were found after the Garissa University attack, is somebody who was known to me. Somebody who was known to me. A very young, brilliant, energetic lawyer from a very good family. Very good family. A young person. So it's high time we start communicating to the young people in the language they understand best if we really want to address this whole pandemic of terrorism. It is high time we stop carrying knives in a battlefield full of bombs and machine guns. The whole war of terrorism starts with simple radicalization. Simply radicalization. Narratives. So going out there in full combat, if anything, we are radicalizing more. We are radicalizing more people. Through art, I believe we're going to come up with counter-narratives. We've seen amazing initiatives from the Horn Institute and building resilience against violence, extremism. I've read some of their pieces, beautiful, amazing narratives. Can you convert those narratives into art? The booklet, spoken words, performance art? This is the first step. The war on terrorism, as I'm concluding, it's not a new phenomenon. It's not something new. But the question is, why is it so persistent? Why is it still on? Why are we still here today, this morning, 16th of September, still talking about this thing in 2021? One of the key reasons, personally, I believe, is packaging of this war. How we are packaging it. How we are packaging it. We are making it exclusive. I hope and I pray when we live here, we're going to think and rethink and strategize, re-strategize on how we are going to package this war against terror. It should come out in such a way that when we are fighting terrorism, we are not fighting a particular group. We are not fighting a particular community. We are not fighting a particular cluster in our society. We are not fighting a particular religion for any reason whatsoever. Let us objectify the war against terrorism. Let us do that. The room is full of players on the war against terrorism. Let us think and re-strategize on how we are addressing this war, how we are fighting this war. Let us package the information correctly. Art is one of the ways. Media activation is another way. Social media, mainstream media, ground activations. Only with the right packaging, we can attract more players, and together we are going to defeat this enemy known as terrorism. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Asante sana. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Faisal. Let's give a big round of applause once more. I think his message is extremely loud and clear. The fact that we need to involve the youth in the fight against terrorism, they end up being the first people that those who are trying to recruit go looking for. We don't see grey-haired men or women on that battlefield. We see our young, we see our children, we see our nephews, our nieces. We see them pulled in by all sorts of things. I mean, you take them to good schools and you think that is all. Sometimes we even set good examples. We show them what we have acquired in life. We've become professors, we become doctors, and we think that is exactly what they want. But however, we also need to listen to them. And the generations of youth keep on changing. The youth of 20 years ago is no longer the same youth. Many of us used to find fun just taking care of cows or going fishing, hunting. Now hunting is illegal, so we cannot do that anymore. Fishing, our lakes and rivers are polluted, so there's nothing much to catch there anymore. I mean, it's cheaper to buy fish than to sit by the river waiting for a fish. But anyway, to understand the role of the youth and civil societies as key partners in the government in preventing and countering violent extremism, we're going to have our next speaker, who's a senior programs manager at ISB Kenya, Dominic Picalia. Let's give him a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. As Dominic prepares his presentation, just remember that times have changed. It is no longer the role of just the governments and NGOs to tackle this issue of violent extremism, but it is up to the youth and many of us, every single one of us.
Thank you so much. Is it working? I think it's now working. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And actually, this is going to be our conversation. Whatever I'm going to share with you is nothing new because the theme of this particular event is youth. And also the participants are very youthful. And also we are civil society. So we are going to have a conversation about ourselves. And already the previous speakers have touched about the subject matter, especially on youth and civil society. But just to begin, is that this resolution that calls upon the role of youth in contributing to justice and reconciliation across the world, again because of the various factors that have been talked about. We are the majority in the world, and that's why even the UN instruments like this particular resolution actually recognizes the role of youth in contributing to peace and security. So maybe some statistics. Our constitution defines youth as people who are above 18 years and below 35 years. And according to the last census, this accounts for almost 40% of the population. And our median age is around 19 years. But again, if you look at all the people below 35 years, we actually make up 75% of the population. So, in summary, we are a very youthful country. And sometimes back when President Obama was in Kenya, he talked about if you don't involve half of your team in terms of population, you're not going to win. But now what we're learning here is that actually, if you're not going to involve 75% of our population or our team in this conversation, then we're not going to make some headway. So it's timely to have this conversation. And actually, it confirms that youth are key stakeholders, and I think the immediate speaker talked about 90% of the fighters, of the extremists being youth. So we really have a big role to play if we are to contribute to this war. So Rehema actually had a whole slide about the role of youth, but maybe just to summarize it is that yes, we are now calling upon innovative ways of one, engaging the youth, and secondly trying to address this problem. And Dr. Hassan, when he was giving his remarks, he said that one of the problems that we are facing in this field is that we are using old approaches, old strategies to try to address a modern issue. And that's why now the role of youth becomes very important, because it's not just about the workshops, the seminars, the roundtables, the capacity building trainings. We really need something beyond that, because even our communities, even our youth, they are somehow fatigued by these workshops. And that's why now, when we have youth doing performances, raising awareness, passing positive messages, covering some of those messages through a number of approaches, like theater, for example, like films. Many organizations are now using films to pass that message and to engage a number of youth in this subject matter. We talked about sports is now growing, and research, like where I work, in the coastal region, we actually support youth to do their own research so that they can be able to generate evidence to influence policy. So these are research led by youth, but sometimes we mobilize at this table, which is here, to help them in terms of methodology and other things. But again, we realize that when we are using youth to do their own research, then we are likely to avoid that bias, that when we use maybe somebody who is a senior in the, may not be able to really engage with the youth. So a number of ways that we can engage youth. Social media, I think now somebody said that today is different from 15 years ago. A lot of our interactions are in social media. And actually most of the people who are using this social media are actually the youth. So we really need to find a way, other than our traditional approaches of meetings and the rest, to see how can we engage youth in a number of ways. How did I come to know about Lenga Ugaidi? I've been seeing Lenga Ugaidi in social media, particularly in Twitter. And initially I thought this was a social media movement. But sometimes last year, where I was working, we were in partnership with Impact Amplifier, and we were requested to shortlist applications for a Google fund on online safety. And I came across an application from Lenga Ugaidi. And then now I realized, okay, these guys are not just a social media movement, but they are actually an organization. And I think because of the application, the nature of what they are proposing, to engage now youth and others through these and innovative ways, we were able to shortlist them, and I hope finally they were awarded that contract. What I'm trying to say is that social media is now the in thing, and we really need to find a way of engaging this youthful population using media. So some of the lessons that we have learned whenever we work with youth is that most of the programs that we support them through our Young Cities grant, Rehema is aware of them, is that most of them are youth-led. They are sustainable also, and they are impactful. And what we realize is that when you use things like theater, film, and other performances, that message is likely to resonate with youth for a longer time than when we use our conventional ways of engaging them. So, in summary, we say that there's actually a value, an added value of engaging youth in this field of preventing extremism. But also we have some challenges whenever we try to, or the youth face, whenever they try to play their rightful role in this space. And I think somebody talked about it. The problem is that sometimes we tend to criminalize being youth. If you look at the statistics of the extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearances, even those who are being held in the police stations, majority of them are youth. So this is the problem that we are having. it's like we are trying to see anything about youth as criminal, and we're not seeing the positive side or the contribution of youth in this field. Again, targeting. How do we engage the youth? Are we just engaging the gatekeepers, the youth who are privileged, the one who will show up in a workshop, the one who can afford the bundles? What can we do to be able now to reach out to the other youth in the Mtani and the rest? I know we have been trying to use a lot of innovation conversations in the villages, but I still believe that we really need to do more in terms of targeting and engaging the youth so that we can be able to reach the most at risk and the most vulnerable in the work that we are doing. Again, very common competition for other resources. Sometimes you have very youthful organizations like Lenga Ugaidi, for example, and so many others, Youth Bila Noma, Yad, and so many of them. Sometimes when we compete with some of these calls, we disadvantage the youth. I have participated in a number of calls whereby some of the international organizations, they actually hire professors and experts just to come and do the proposal for them. And that, and at the end of the day, disadvantages the youth. I know, for example, now like USAID, they are now changing their strategy. They are now trying to focus or to prioritize the local organizations, including youth, in their awards. So we hope that we are going to address that problem. But also again, most of us as the young people, they are also restless. They want immediate results. When Prof talked about the visit that they have been able to make across the world, the young people also want to visit those countries today without taking into account that this is a process. So this one also makes us vulnerable to being recruited by some of these groups that promises some material gain. So the second part of the conversation is around civil society. And sometimes we ask ourselves, what do we mean by civil society? There are many definitions, there are many understandings, but one of the broad definitions of civil society is that this is a diverse body of actors, communities, formal or informal associations with a wide range of roles who engage in public life, seeking to advance shared values and objectives. So what you are learning is that civil society are not just NGOs. So NGOs, CBOs, community associations, universities, for example, foundations, even circles, all of them, trade unions, are civil society because they try to advance that shared values and objective of making our society better. In Kenya, we have the Public Benefits Organization Act of 2013. Mheshimiwa was here, Shamala, actually was a key promoter of this act. It was actually ascended to by President Kibaki before he left, but up to now it has not been operationalized. So we are still, most of us as NGOs, we are still working under the NGO Coordination Act of 1990. I don't know why the government has not been able to push on this. But this act defines any public benefit organization as a voluntary membership or a membership grouping of individuals or organizations which one are autonomous, non-partisan, non-profit making, and which operates locally, nationally or internationally, and also engages in public benefits. But again, for this act, that we hope that soon we are going to have it to govern most of the work that we are doing, this does not include now the trade union, does not include any public body established by or under any written law, any political party, any religious organization whose primary focus is devoted to religious teaching and worship. But many of our religious organizations, they do more than that. They do some voluntary work, some philanthropic work. So they are part of PBO, cooperative societies, SACCO, microfinance. All of them are not CSOs, as envisaged by that act. So basically that is the environment or the context that we are operating in as an organization. Now when we come to the subject matter, our role as CSOs in CVE, we have some frameworks that actually gives us mandate to work in this one. One is the Prevention of Terrorism Act of 2012, especially as it was amended in 2014 through the Security Laws Amendment Act that formally established the NCTC, National Counterterrorism Center, which is now the coordinating body for all the work that we are doing. So as we are doing all our pieces on CVE, we are now under the NCTC because of that amendment. And in 2019, there was another amendment through the Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendment, which again now amended that act and gave NCTC more powers over us, where now the NCTC is the approving and reporting organization for all the work that you are doing. So if you are doing any kind of CV work, whether you are a national organization, a CBO, or a national organization, you are supposed to be approved by NCTC. I know the mechanism of doing that has not been worked out, but just engaging NCTC, writing to them formally that this is a program funded by this donor, targeting these communities or counties, looking at these contributing at these pillars, then you can say that we are part of that. Then we have the national strategy to counter violent extremism, the one that was launched in 2016. Every time we have conversation with NCTC, they tell us they are reviewing it. Maybe Dr. Kanenji, I know you are a good friend of NCTC. You will keep on reminding them that we are still waiting for the revised strategy. And now in the counties, we have the county action plans, and also we have other mechanisms like the NCIC Act, the National Steering Committee, all actually gives us a mandate to work in this field. So when we talk about the role of CSOs now in this particular field, we see it around 3 programming areas. Most of the bulk of their work is actually on prevention. We are working on the prevention side of things. We are trying to make sure that one, most of our communities, most of our youth does not one get radicalized, and number 2, does not follow that path to being recruited into some of this group. So most of the work we're doing around awareness raising, around dialogue with the police, for example, and religious, inter and interreligious dialogue, research that we normally do to understand some of this problem, all of them falls under the prevention side of things. And also if you look at the Security Laws Amendment Act, as well as the 2019 amendments of the Potter Act, there are actually some things that we cannot do without express permission from NCTC. One of the things is that on rehabilitation and the reintegration of returnees, those coming back to our country, not any organization can work on that field. You have to be approved by NCTC, and there are good reasons for that. Otherwise, most of the other work is around prevention that we are working on. Then sometimes we work supporting security agencies, especially on the detection, trying to see those early signs of radicalization, trying to see how can we intervene as communities, as civil society. Before now, we now see some of these violence acts being undertaken in our communities. So we really do also a lot of work around that. And as I said, a few of us who have been approved by NCTC and others, and who have the necessary experience and knowledge, can also work under the rehabilitation and the reintegration. Although, and again, as Rema said, we still lack a policy or a legal framework to guide the returnees, those who are coming back, or any amnesty for that matter. But we also face some challenges. One of them is the regulatory frameworks. I talked about those amendments on the Potter Act that sometimes makes our work somehow tedious. We have to seek some permissions to work in this field. We don't know why the government is not implementing the PBO Act of 2013, they are still relying on the 1990 Act. So again, those are some of the regulatory framework challenges that we are facing. Most of our projects are short-term. This issue that we are addressing really needs a lot of engagement, a lot of resources. But now when we have very short-term projects, we are not able to realize some of the outcomes that we thought we would realize. Sometimes we also have competitions among ourselves. We are competing for these resources. So instead of collaborating and complementing each other, we end up using or undertaking a lot of silo programming and not feeding or sticking to each other. Again, there's a limited use of evidence, especially research, to help in the design of the programs that we are doing, review ongoing programs or projects. And some time back, I did an evaluation of the CV programs in Kenya. And one of the things that we realized that, yes, most of us, we do evaluation, but we rarely share evaluation reports. We rarely share lessons learned. I don't know for whatever reasons, but that's an issue that we really need to work on. And so sometimes we unfortunately or unintentionally end up providing some communities. So when you do a mapping of CV work in Kenya, I realize that almost 60% of that work is in Mombasa. Are you not providing the Mombasa community? Or when most of our activities are in Lamu or Mandera, are we suggesting that yes, a lot of regulations take place in the communities? So sometimes we end up providing some of these communities. Otherwise, that's it. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know we've been seated for quite a while. Well, let's stretch our feet a bit. Let's stretch our feet as far as the dining table. That's all I can hold it. You can refresh yourselves. We'll have live performances by the 97s band. They'll keep us busy for the next 10 or so minutes. Let's refresh the mind, refresh the body, and then we'll get back and talk about this big question in the room. I mean, we need to talk about how we're going to handle this counter-violence extremism, how we're going to involve the youth in this particular narrative, because as we sit here making policy, the enemy is out there working twice as hard, half the budget that we are on, and they're doing, I'm sorry to say, they're doing extremely well at what they're doing, because they're giving us sleepless nights. The effects of what they're doing is affecting every single one of us, from those who live in Nairobi all the way down to those who live by the coast, those who live in Somalia, and those who live across the nation. Now, for those of us who are watching us online, remember, you can still follow the conversation online. If you go to the Lenga Ugaidi Facebook page, you'll see more details on that. If you go to the Twitter handles, Lenga Ugaidi, follow the hashtag, and remember, you can keep the conversation going online. Join the youth who are there, and let's keep the conversation going. Ladies and gentlemen, Mbogi, hamtaki kufanya hivyo? Sawa. Thank you. But they feel free, eh? I can see guys standing and sitting, not sure who wants to go to the table first. For those whose names I know, I will call you out and ask you to lead everybody towards the table. So feel free, please. Let's get ourselves something to bite, something to drink, and we'll continue the next 10 minutes.
Hello everyone. As you take your tea, we will embrace you with good vibes, the 97s vibes, and enjoy. And we are very grateful for the holders of this initiative. It's an effective initiative that really helps the youth to keep on reducing the terrorism and abuse of drugs. The 97s.
Wanipa nitakacho, usiti
nisemacho kwako sawa, niombea Mungu. Oh, kuna watu na viatu duniani. Oh, kuna watu wasiopenda maendeleo. Oh, ukiwa nacho chawauma ndani kwa ndani, achana nao, waepuke haraka sana. Oh, kuna watu na viatu duniani. Oh, kuna watu wasiopenda maendeleo. Oh, ukiwa nacho chawauma ndani kwa ndani, achana nao, waepuke haraka sana. Rafiki yangu mpendwa, naja kwako, siku mingi wanipokea kwa uzuri siku zote. Wakati sina, wanipa nitakacho, usiti nisemacho wako sawa, niombea Mungu. Moyoni mwangu najua nina rafiki, yule wa kweli, hakuna yule ambaye atakuja kati yetu. Wakati sina, wanipa nitakacho, usiti nisemacho kwako sawa, niombea Mungu. Oh, kuna watu na viatu duniani. Oh, kuna watu wasiopenda maendeleo. Oh, ukiwa nacho chawauma ndani kwa ndani, achana nao, waepuke haraka sana. Kuna watu na viatu duniani. Oh, kuna watu wasiopenda maendeleo. Oh, ukiwa nacho chawauma ndani kwa ndani, achana nao, waepuke haraka sana.
We are here still to share good vibes. Muziki bila jasho.
Machozi yangu yote namalizika, mie nitalala na nani? We unaenda kama ile njia yako ina, kama ni maisha yako fuata, ewe dada. mpaka nikuwazawaza, we unaenda, mpaka ni mawazo, hapana niacha, na kama wewe unaenda, machozi yangu yote namalizika, nani wewe unaenda, mie mpaka ni mawazo, mie mpaka ni kuwazawaza, wewe unaenda, kama hiyo njia ya kuenda, kama ni maisha ya kufuata, wewe dada, pray love, seems that's the way, pray love, seems that's the way.
Jua litawaka. Usiweke kiatu. Shukuru Mungu, nikashukuru Mungu.
Jua litawaka. There is a better tomorrow.
Najua jua litawaka, najua litatua, najua kuna kiangazi na kuna time ya mvua, najua dua la kuku alimgusi wewe, hata wakikushuku usijishuku wewe, najua jua litawaka, najua litatua, najua kuna kiangazi na kuna time ya mvua, najua dua la kuku alimgusi wewe, hata wakikushuku usijishuku wewe, najua najua kuna kiangazi na kuna time ya mvua, najua dua la kuku alimgusi wewe, hata wakikushuku usijishuku wewe, najua sema Tafadhali Mola mwambie milele tuchuke mimi sitazama, mashetani asinivamie, chuki wivu tunakutesa, linda kwako usiwasikie, kwa nini hatuwezi sote kupendana? Oi, acha nikwambie, labda si sote wenda wazimu, labda lala yetu pesa, kesho kipoteza kila kitu, dunia nzima itakuteka, wanaobatiliwe chai yangu sumu, wabaki hao ndo kusema, kesho wakumune dunia yangu simu, kama walivyonipenda ora, I'm sorry if I never made you happy, I can't be there for everybody. It's easy to see when you wish you could have done kasoro kwako. When nights so many my days, you are not able to money man society. Woni ya kukunja familia, hamna ukinifikiria tuoi binadamu wote. Oya wana wasi watu hawa, binadamu kageuka mnyama, hayawani, 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 hayawani. Kusema kweli bado nakuhata, on the daily bado nakufuata, kosa sio hota, zaidi ya kukupenda, vipi nikatupa ndoto tulizoziota, uliniwasha nare, enzi zetu za kupare, mvinyo na makale, magizani hadi ngware, nikijifanya dakitare, mama binti wale wenye shepu za hatari, nikapotelea ndani, ila mwambe nampenda, roho ya mtawani bado nampenda, ukimwona mwambie nampenda, roho ya mtawani bado nampenda, ukimwona. Tabasamu ya kishua, rosa wana maua, I can't miss you this morning, vile unapendeza, kama ningeweza jua, yebi ya kutarajia, nisingejipata mashakani, kwa niliyoyatenda, ninayempenda ni
wewe, hakuna mwingine wa kubadili penzi. Ningependa tuelewane, kiburi kisitekosanishe na only ni washadare penzi zetu za kupare kwa mvinyo na makale magizani hadi ngware nikijifanya dakitare wa mabinti wale wenye shepu za hatari nikapotelea ndani bila mwambi na mpenda roho ya mtambani bado nampenda ukimwona mwambie nampenda roho ya mtambani bado nampenda ukimwona nampenda roho ya mtambani bado nampenda baba mwambie nampenda roho ya mtambani bado nampenda ukimwona.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause tafadhali.
1, 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think it will be nice for us to kindly have our seats. Remember, the table still remains open if you'd like to grab yourself something to drink or something to eat. As we continue to our next speaker, I think it would be nice to involve the youth in this. We have some gentlemen who have been part of this campaign, who've helped us raise awareness about this campaign. I would like them to come up to the stage just to say hi, pass on their regards and their message to their fans who are also watching us live on YouTube. Remember to follow the conversation online for those of us who are at home and would like to continue chipping in with whatever they would like to add into this particular event. The hashtag to use is Lenga Ugaidi na Talanta 5. That is the hashtag right now. I think we were trending early on in the morning. Let's keep the conversation going. Right now, let's introduce Mbogi Genje and Vini Baite. Let's kindly come up to the stage. Salimia watu kidogo.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Mko poa? Mbogi ni Genje. Mbogi Genje hapa na ngumi ni Mbwegze. Kabla mnatambua slogan yetu.
Oya oya. Mko tifini. Ngumi ni ngapi? Ngumi ni Mbwegze. Ya man, smadi things hapa. Na ni pleasure kukuwa na nyinyi leo asubuhi. Hii program yenye mna run ni kitu fiti. It assist my youth kwa mtaa. Pia mimi mali nimetoka. Vitu kama crime ni vitu si face. Unaona, si kama vijana. Na hakuna toshaitokea wakatoka from hata ka organization ya kutafuta vile watafaita hata crowd kwa mtaa, unaona. Na kuna matalent huko mtaa na ziko mob, unaona. So mimi nashukuru Lenga Ugaidi na Talanta, ni program fiti na najua itaokoa na watu wengi. Amen.
Ni ajeni. Wewe mko fiti siku ya leo. Tunashukuru kwa kutu-invite Lenga Ugaidi na Talanta, kazi fiti. Mavijana huko mtaani, shida ni mingi. Na pia sometimes pia na hizi shida mingi wanasahau labda kuna vitu kama talent, skills. Lakini na platform kama ya Lenga Ugaidi na Talanta, at least ina remind mavijana kuna wanaweza rely na skills zenye God amewapea. Kwa hivyo tunashukuru siku ya leo na tuendelee kushikana hivyo na God wa bless wote.
Mkopoa. Sisikii sauti jo. Lenga Ugaidi na Talanta. Sasa tuko pamoja, tutapiga hiyo ugaidi ile utaweza, si ndio? Kabisa.
Saseni, naitwa Vini Baite, comedian. Hawa ndo Mbogi Genji. Lakini sasa pia mimi sasa hii ni Mbogi. Nimebambika kuwa hapa. Lenga Ugaidi ni organization nimework nayo nikiwa campus, nilikuwa nafanya film for Lenga Ugaidi hizo competitions, and I'm happy to be part of you today. Thank you.
Now, if you were to talk that language in a boardroom, I'm sure half of the conversation would go past half of us. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to notice the differences in generations. I mean, when we were growing up, yes, we had our own language because we wanted to sound different from everybody else. We didn't want our parents to understand what we were talking about. And I think this current generation is taking it a notch higher. I mean, they can literally talk about you and you're seated there and you not understand, you laugh with them. Little did you know that you were the topic of conversation. But it is interesting because, you know what, it's nice to see that the youth themselves are actually standing up, using their own language, talking in their own language, in the way that they know they can communicate to their fellow youth. Not assuming that we know what the youth want. The youth are the ones who know what they want because they are the ones who are living this particular life right now. For us, we're just holding fort for them until it is their time to take over. So as we continue to arm them with the information that they need, give them the guidance that they require. Events like Lenga Ugaidi, Talanta will also help bring them and help them realize their talents, utilize them in the fight against terrorism, and being able to create their own narrative around counter-violent extremism. Now, our next speaker is the director of Success Institute in Somalia. He'll be tackling the issue of potential areas for cooperation, bridging the gap between the creative arts, countering violent extremism, and entrepreneurship. He goes by the name of Mohammed Omer. He'll be joining us online, so I think if we can have him beamed up the screens for those who are also watching online so they can follow what is going on. Remember, as we continue to talk and as you continue to listen to the different speakers, if you've got any questions for them, you can see them after the presentations. We can continue to nourish the mouth and the body. The dining area remains open throughout the presentation, so feel free. Remember, everything that has been laid out there has been laid out for you. I think we're ready, Mohammed. So I think we'll allow Mohammed to continue with his presentation. Remember, he's tackling the issue of potential areas for cooperation, bridging the gap between the creative arts, countering violent extremism, and entrepreneurship. Thank you.
I can hear you very well. Yes, I can hear you very well. You can hear me. Can I go ahead with my presentation, please?
Mohammed, I think you can go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. So I'll be sure. Okay. So I'll be sharing my screen for the presentation. I think you can see my screen. Can everybody see my screen, please? It's 12 o'clock. Okay. Thank you. So we go ahead with my presentation. So as the host said, I will be presenting. I will be touching a little bit on the cooperation, on especially the performance in before I run through you the history of the brief history of violent extremism and radicalization in Somalia context. I'd like to take the title of my presentation. Yes. Violent conflicts. Let it be rather conflicts, source-related conflicts, war waged
Ladies and gentlemen, really sorry about that. Kindly give us a couple of minutes as we try to sort this out. We should be back in the next couple of minutes. Meanwhile, I think every single one of us has a mobile device that is connected to the internet. For those without bundles, I think we have free Wi-Fi today. What I'd like you to do is let's try and follow the Lenga Ugaidi online platforms. Let's follow their conversation. Let's help them in their conversation. Let's help them in their journey. So if you go online to Twitter, Twitter is the one that has a bad icon. You'll find a hashtag that we're using this particular afternoon. Very easy to follow. Lenga Ugaidi na Talanta 5. You see the different people who are trying to contribute towards this particular conversation this afternoon. And for those who are not following them, take some time to like, follow, read some of the things that the youth are sharing. I believe that most of the people who are online at this point in time are the youth. You can also share the fact that we're also live on YouTube and on Facebook. I'm not sure if I could hear Mohammed in the background. Not yet.
I can clearly hear you guys, if you can hear me.
Yes, you can hear you a bit clearer. Are you ready to start?
I can clearly hear you. Can I be heard, please?
Yes, you can be heard. I think you can proceed. You can proceed.
Shall I go? Shall I go ahead?
Please do.
With,
Please do.
with my presentation?
Yes, you should. Please.
All right. Thank you so much. Shall I go back to the previous paragraph, or shall I restart it all over again? I don't know. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me.
Just you can start from the beginning. I think that way we can get everything that you're talking about.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. All right. So, I mean, before I go ahead with spotting the light on the nexus between, creative arts, entrepreneurship, and CDE, I'd like to give you a piece of a brief history of violent extremism in Somalia and how radicalization started all over in Somalia. So, in Somalia context, for over a quarter century now, Somalia has been at the epicenter of violent conflicts, tribal conflicts, resource-related conflicts, wars waged by neighboring states, failed international interventions, and functional fighting have created a population already tired of exploitation, right for radicalization. So, history is, in 2006, the majority of Somalis have never heard of Al-Shabaab. Which basically operated in a secret tiny wing within the Union of Islamic Courts, which was responsible for removing the warlords from official. However, by 2009, Al-Shabaab was a fully-fledged functional insurgency, controlling huge swaths of territory in south-central Somalia. And of course, collecting millions in taxes, and in the decades since Al-Shabaab's emergence, Al-Shabaab has become one of the most violent militarized extremist organizations in Africa. So it's actually important to note that there are 20,000 UN-mandated armed forces currently in Somalia, battling with Al-Shabaab of course, along with international military assets. So it's also important to note that international military assets have basically been deployed to the country, including active U.S. military forces, mostly engaged in drone attacks and raids, which have killed Al-Shabaab leaders, including its leader, Ahmed Gunay. So, even though some commentators believe that Al-Shabaab has actually become the hunter instead of the hunter, but the hunted instead of the hunter, basically, there's no question that the group's operational capacity is relatively intact, and that it, of course, about and that followers among young Somalis and non-Somalis, particularly young people, that we're focused on salvation now. So the majority of Al-Shabaab fighters, suicide bombers are, of course, and of course, it just leaders at some point. Have access to significant international network of financiers. So in the battle of jihad against the Somalis and external actors in Somalia has apparently struck a chord with significant proportion of the country's youth population. Given Somalia, of Somalis are under the age of population is younger and is under 15. So Al-Shabaab has a fast reservoir for recruiting. Intervention by Somalis neighbors, widespread corruption by the crisis, which is the thing that I was spotlighting on, trash and pilot state building and external exploitation have rendered Ummah al-Shabaab as an emerging threat to the stability of the country and the harm. So one would say state failure alone cannot explain the root cause, of course, of radicalization and violent extremism in Somalia, both internal and external factors that contributed to the rise and resilience of Al-Shabaab must exactly be examined with us. So attention should be given and paid to the nature as well as the effect of Al-Shabaab's ideology and its communication techniques. So it's also important to note that similarly the absence of ineffectiveness of strategies deployed by the religious actors in Somalia counter narrative of unenforced gaps in governance in Somalia and the impact of external actors should also be given a close attention and closely be scrutinized. So that's also a very important thing to note. What's also very important to note here is what could be the causes of youth recruitment in Al-Shabaab. So it's also important to realize, and that's what I'm trying to find out in this presentation, which is mostly referring to a qualitative study research done by the Somali Institute for Development of Research in Somalia, shortened as CIDRA. So my presentation is basically informed by that quantitative research done by CIDRA Institute, which is basically in the form of key informants and in 10 different cities and focus group discussions and all that. So going forward, what are the root causes of the violent extremism in Somalia? So there are a lot of things that come to mind when it comes to the root causes of this evil in Somalia, which has basically dragged the country into chaos, and which is now posing itself as a threat to the international security. So I would start with weak governance. First,
Unfortunately, we seem to. Unfortunately, we seem to have lost our brother due to a network issue. However, what we'll do is we'll try and ensure that we get his presentation and have it shared amongst every single one of us. But, I mean, I was looking at this like a war. Let's imagine we're an army and we're plotting to go to war. And the army definitely is broken into different arms. You've got your generals, you've got your foot soldiers. I mean, we need to send out our sharpest of people, our fittest, our strongest, our most agile. The generals need to stay in office creating policy, like every single one of us, most of us do. But the youth have an adage, our ground will be different. And sometimes, when we don't involve the youth in some of these things, when you actually put down your policy and it has been made into law, you've done all the framework, you get to the ground and when you're trying to practice what you've actually been putting into policy, it doesn't work. Because one, maybe the person that you're trying to involve to implement the strategy doesn't understand it, or doesn't think that it will work, or the narrative on the ground has already changed and is totally different. So all I'm trying to say is something very simple. The youth are the future and are the way through how we can actually fight and keep up the fight for violent extremism. On paper, everything might look like it's well thought out, well strategized. You'll even pat yourself on the back, telling yourself how good a job you've done. However, if you do not involve the youth, the people who are actually being recruited into violent extremism, we tend to find ourselves with strategies that not necessarily work. Now, our next speaker is actually going to come and talk about strategy, looking ahead, strengthening strategic relationships in existing regional networks by Clifford Omondi Okwanyi. He's a research fellow at the Department of Political Affairs at the Public Administration at the University of Nairobi. So let's put our hands together. Let's invite Clifford. Hi, Mumekula. Let us clap for Clifford. Yeah, that's more like it.
Good afternoon. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's afternoon.
Clifford, take this first. Sorry about that.
Hello? Good. Thank you very much. I've decided to remove my mask because I was just talking to one person out here that since we started wearing masks, so you don't see people smiling. You know, professor was making a joke and everyone looked like as if they were not understanding the joke, but they were smiling inside the mask. So I decided to remove mine so that I can have a good conversation with you. You know, when I was invited to come and talk about strategy, I was so excited. Security is what I read, security is what I eat, security is what I sleep. So it's very interesting. And you know, listening to Professor here speaking, he's been my mentor for a long time. And I happen to be also very privileged to bring some of my students here. So it's a generation. So I'm very happy today. I'm going to talk about strategy. I'm going to talk about strengthening strategy regional network, and my focus will be so much on AMISOM, that is African Youth Initiative on Climate Change. How I wish I could speak the Bogigenje language, you know. That would be really interesting, but I will learn. I'm privileged to learn, and I'm very privileged to have a lot of young people here. So, my presentation is divided into, it's very deeply rooted into strategic studies, international relations. For those of you who've studied international relations and political science, deeply rooted into different theoretical understanding of counter-violence extremism and counter-terrorism. So I'll try as much as possible to be very simple. So to start us with, just an understanding of what security is. Security and strategy. These are very interesting concepts, and I've been working with this concept for such a long time. So, you know, security today has changed. The way we used to look at security is very different from today's security. Before, old wars, it was about the battlefield. Today, the battlefield has changed. It's on the internet. We have things to do with cybersecurity. It's not just about physical security, but psychological aspect. You know, the physical versus the psychological balance. You know, for example, the Ethiopian Defense Forces, they're fighting in Somali, All of a sudden, there's war in Tigray region, northern Ethiopia. So that balance between, you're fighting on the ground, but at home, there is some tension, so some feelings about what's going on at home. So wars have changed. We used to have old wars, today we have new wars. And how do we have strategies to fight these new wars? We have the internet. A lot of young people are on the internet as compared to people of my age. We are not so much on the internet. And so there's a lot of strategies which we need to use in terms of understanding the new wars, understanding how we can counter violence extremism. Security on the other side, just to be very clear, it's the absence of threat. When we talk of the absence of threat, we are talking about state security, foreign policy. The state provides security for us. Today we are happy here enjoying because the government is protecting us. But we cannot just define security as absence of threat. Because today, as I say, the world is changing. So security can also be defined as absence of fear. Take this example. You are a Somali kid. Maybe you're in school somewhere in Lower Shabelle. You're in school somewhere in Baidoa. Even Kismayo, for example, where there's Kenya Defense Forces. You are going to school, but when you come home, Al-Shabaab are around. You hear some of the neighbor there, maybe somewhere there. You're in a community where Al-Shabaab exists. So, do you take security as absence of threat or absence of fear? Because you see the Amazon military around your home, but also Al-Shabaab is trying to tell you not to support this security. So it's not just about state security, it's also absence of fear. When there is that absence of fear, then security can emerge. And actually this Al-Shabaab, for example, they use this aspect of absence of fear in some of their tactics and strategy. And therefore, governments such as Kenya, Ethiopia, within AMISOM, that is Burundi, Uganda, they should come up with strategies which are much, much more ahead. And this should be clear in some of my next slides when we talk of these strategies. So let me just give a very brief, because I don't want to dwell on the theoretical framework, because I've been studying this for so long, for quite a long time. The theory I'm trying to use here to define, for example, what Rehema was talking about, radicalization, is a theory called ontological security. I'll explain briefly what I mean. Ontological security is the security of the self. If you're an international relations student, you will understand that there are these big theories such as realism, power and might and national security and so on. But different theories have emerged. For example, when you study radicalization, a theory such as ontological security is very important to understand foreign policy. How these states such as Kenya, Ethiopia, behave within AMISOM, it's very important. We have this East Africa Standing Forces, that is the AMISOM police, and how these police behave within AMISOM. Currently, if you look at AMISOM is very much focused on the military. They have few number of police, about very few, 70 civilians. So it's very much focused on the military, which a theory like this realism is focusing on. It's about the state. It's about self-help. It's about survival. Kenya went into Somalia in 2011 to protect itself, claiming Article 51 of the UN Charter, self-defense. And it's about survival. At the international level, everyone has to help themselves. There's no world police. So you have to be, you have to help yourself. You have to survive within the international arena. But some of these strategies projected by realism, we have seen when we look at violence extremism, they are not very much productive. So, realism talks about power. It's all about power. It's all about survival. It's all about. But we have new sort of realism thinking, which is structure. So, if you think of structure, you think of AMISOM, for example. The Horn of African countries have been coming in as a body within AMISOM to fight the Al-Shabaab, counter-violence extremism. So different, realism has changed when it comes to when we think of the structure. So structural realism. But within the structure, you find that states are also fighting. For example, there's a lot of politics between Kenya and Ethiopia. And for those of you who've studied, who are very much keen in the Horn of Africa studies, studying security within the Horn, you find that, for example, in 1964, the Ethiopian-Kenyan pact, fighting, coming up within a military strategy to fight Somalia, and then the Moi and Ethiopia also in the 90s, where Cold War was very much projected. Actually, Cold War was coming to an end, and then Kenya and Ethiopia also had some kind of politics. So you find that as much as these countries within the Horn are fighting within Somalia, there's some kind of history which can explain how these states behave. And structural realism can explain to us how these alliances come and how these alliances have challenges. Next, when we try to understand ontological security, as I've said, realism is about physical security, foreign policy. It's about state survival. It's about power and money. But today, as we say, security has changed, and we shall see this. For example, if you compare the current violence extremism in Mozambique, that is Cabo Delgado, and you compare that with the Kenyan situation. A very good example is the Pumwani case, how Al-Shabaab, recruited in Pumwani, and how Al-Shabaab also does the same in Nkole village in Mozambique. Very similar. Ontological security teaches us about identities. It gives us a framework of anxieties. The individual reflects on themselves. What is my identity, for example? And so on. So this gives us a better understanding and understanding of security from an individual level, as opposed to the military aspect. Next, some of the strategies, understanding AMISOM. AMISOM, way back from 2006, different strategies, US-Ethiopian alliance, and then AMISOM coming in. Today, AMISOM have different sectors within Somalia. They have about 6 sectors in Somalia. But these sectors within Somalia, if we could ask ourselves, because AMISOM from 2014, the UN Security Council have been saying, AMISOM will withdraw, AMISOM will withdraw. Last year, AMISOM was supposed to withdraw sometimes in May. Today, the UN Security Council has said AMISOM will withdraw in December. Will they really withdraw? If they withdraw, what will happen? And one question we should ask ourselves, for example, the Burundi troops, they are in Somalia. The Rwandese troops, they are in Mozambique. If we ask ourselves what Rwandese troops are doing in Cabo Delgado, a lot of issues, for example, Burundi, we would say maybe trying to help their youth, because young people are involved in these military actions, and AMISOM, actually SADC, that is the South African coalition, they can learn something from AMISOM. AMISOM is very, very military based. AMISOM has about, some people say 19,000 troops, some 18,000 troops by 2019. It's very, very much militarily. AMISOM has it should have about 1,000 police. And the civilians about 70. So you look at AMISOM itself, very, very much military based. But if you, for example, compare AMISOM and ECOMOG, ECOMOG did something very interesting. ECOMOG helped to remove Yahya Jammeh in power. So this strategy of coalitions can help a state. But again, we should ask ourselves a lot of questions when it comes to military forces, because security is changing. Security has changed. So one thing we should understand is the dilemma between foreign policy and domestic policy. There's this issue of territoriality. When I talk of territoriality, I mean there are bases which the government is so strong. And these violent extremist organizations, such as Al-Shabaab, they cannot reach. It's very hard for them to reach there. But there are also other territories which I call semi-territoriality. These are bases which there is a strength, your government is very strong, but these organizations have some relatively freedom to move. Such kind of semi-territoriality would be Mandera, for example, would be Wajir, for example, would be Garissa, for example, and so on. Of course, there's strong government, but these organizations have some freedom to operate. So such policies focusing on such semi-territoriality aspect is very important. Another thing when it comes to strategy, civil society plays a lot of important role when it comes to counter-violence extremism, because civil societies are on the ground. They are, they rub shoulders with the community. So they have initiatives such as community policing, which is a very good strategy when it comes to countering violence extremism. And community policing is a strategy as well as a philosophy. A philosophy in the sense that you're building trust within the security forces and the community to fight counter-violence extremism. But it is a strategy also for the security forces to get information. So such kind of strategies are very important. And for example, in Kenya, the civil society are playing a very important role. So, for example, there's a coalition between the civil society and government, and the police, that is, when it comes to community policing. These are very important initiatives when it comes to fighting violent extremism. This is a very important framework. I happen to be privileged in training East Africa Standing Forces Police in Embakasi. I was involved in training different police. when it comes to community policing. Community policing is a very good strategy when it comes to partnership, solving problems, because the community, the police becomes more, the police works with the community as opposed to, policing the community. These are very good strategies when it comes to fighting counter-violence extremism. But these East Africa Standing Forces, they have a lot of challenges. When you try to study these organizations, you find that even within the state themselves, the police and the community. I happened to do a very good study in Kenya, studying community policing, interviewing young people, asking them different Sheng languages, what are the Sheng languages for the police. And some of these Sheng languages are very interesting because police is something bad. So we need to have such strategies in order to attract the youth to work with the police. If you understand how the community view the police in Kenya, then you will understand that we have some problem. I'm just finishing. Now, some of the challenges. Of course, I mentioned foreign policy problem. Physical security. AMISOM is very much military-based. We need to focus a bit on maybe ontological security, the anxieties. We look at the self, understanding the self. These are different strategies which states can apply when it comes to defense. Not just military and the physical aspect, not just power and money. It's not just power and money, but it's also about the feelings, the psychoanalysis, trying to understand the aspect of security. The concept radicalization, for example, is very contested in different aspects. I think some days back, there was an attack in Somalia, that is in Mogadishu, suicide attack. I don't know so far how many people have died, 11 or maybe more. And this tells you the kind of, the strength these organizations still have. Yet AMISOM is saying we're supposed to withdraw in December, and so on. And again, as I said, historical challenges, Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, for example, looking towards the United States, and Hel Mariam of Ethiopia looking towards the Soviet Union. That is during the Cold War period. So you find that within the Horn of Africa, there's a lot of, there's a lot of anxieties. The individual state goes out there. There's a lot of, the international arena is very, there's no world police. So you have to calculate. Should I work with Daktari here? Should I work with Professor here? So all these are issues within the international arena. And therefore, the organizations such as Al-Shabaab takes advantage. And this is if you study Al-Shabaab in how Al-Shabaab recruited in Pumwani with this leader, young, energetic, young, energetic leadership within the mosque, they come and challenge the old mosque in Pumwani. Ahmed Iman is saying that these old people, the leadership within the mosque, we should be more radical. And this is the same thing and the same situation which happened in Mozambique. A young man by the name Swaleh, he comes from he comes from Tanzania, Mbeya, goes into Nkole village, and he radicalized the young people, saying that the old leadership of the mosque is not, they're not according to the ideologies. So then people start adjusting. I happen to be privileged to be in Kole village, trying to understand violence, extremism, but you find that Al-Shabaab present in Mozambique, it's, people talk, it's very blurry because people are writing about Al-Shabaab in Mozambique. There's also ISIS in Mozambique. So there's a lot of, it's still an area which needs to be understood. But you find that there's a lot of militarization already. The Rwandese police are there, with the help, they're helping the Mozambique. South African is also, South Africa and Mozambique coalition and so on. So you find that this military strategy, as much as it might be good, it might be helpful, but we might be having a lot of challenges. So thank you so much. I love security. I can talk until the next day. Asante sana.
Thank you very much.
Let's give him one more round of applause. I think, considering the depth of what he had to present, there's a lot we can actually learn from what he has presented to us this afternoon. Hopefully, we can have the same shared with every single one of us. There's a lot of knowledge and information that we can pick up from there. Now, we'd like to officially launch season 5 of the Lenga Ugaidi in Talanta. I know that is exactly what brought us here today. So let's put our hands together for Honorable Jennifer Shamala as she comes up to the stage to officially launch the Lenga Ugaidi in Talanta. Makofi, come on, that's it. Thank you very much.
Ladies.
This is the microphone, sorry. It's just been cleaned.
Oh, this is not the microphone.
No, that's for on there.
Oh, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the Joshua generation, the chosen generation, I'm the COVID cop in Bungay. You can never be too paranoid. I live by that, yes? It's a pleasure to be here. I have asked my personal assistant to time me because I'm not a rambler. I cannot speak more than 5 minutes, and if I do, he will put up his hand and I may extend it by 1 minute. I am so honored to be here with you, the chosen generation. I truly believe you're the chosen generation. And I'm so honored to realize, to see people, to witness a generation and a people that are fighting terrorism through talent. And why do I say this? Because when the Garissa University attack occurred in 2015, I will never forget what happened in Croatia. Does anybody know what happened in Croatia? What the students did? One person. Do the others know? The youth here? Put up your hands, those who know. Put up your hands. Tell me what happened.
They stood in solidarity with us.
How?
By lighting candles, holding a vigil.
Lighting candles, holding a vigil. Anyone else?
They did a human chain to draw the number who had died in that attack.
Do you remember? And they lay on the ground, and it was also expressed through the minutes, that I think 146 minutes. That was a powerful, powerful, powerful use of art and talent. Probably one of the most, it resonated. In fact, I think later there was some football, I don't watch these FIFA or whichever World Cup, and Kenya really rallied behind Croatia. So that is the use of talent and art in fighting or countering violent terrorism. The other thing I want to put on the, thank you, Patrick, was it Clifford, or Pat, who gave the talk? I will address something that I learned from you, very powerful. But let us correct some things. You know, by nature, I'm very opinionated. I have opinions, yeah? Actually, during the Cold War, we were safer as a country. Let me not talk about other countries. Because of interests. And those interests were Soviet and United States interest. And the minute the Berlin Wall fell, and I've said time and time again, and I have no apologies to make, they started what they called the democratization of Africa. Yet in their own countries, they went from feudalism to monarchs and they followed a process of reaching democracy. And for us, I will never forget Madeleine Albright saying that there is a new brand of African leaders. She named Afewerki, Meles Zenawi, Paul Kagame, and Kaguta Museveni. His Excellency Museveni as well. And Daniel Torochich Moi was branded a traitor. Or what was he? Not a traitor, but a dictator. Okay? An autonomous dictator. I appreciate the role that was played in multi-party democracy, but we must have factual history, facts to our history. So actually, at that time, if this is the wars broke out, I don't want to have a long lecture on that. You can go and study it yourself and research it, okay? Because we became more insecure. And the other thing is I want to put on record is that actually Kenya has a defense pact with Ethiopia, which states categorically that if ever one of those countries are attacked, the other will come to their defense. I want to then go on to the absence of fear. It's something you taught me today. I thought terrorism is just about them coming in and shooting and killing. And every one of us is a victim of terrorism, because the minute you wake up, even if you are not at Westgate, even if you are not in the 98 bomb blast, how many more minutes? You have woken up to those pictures. You have seen it on TV. You have seen the traumatized victims, the living that they leave behind. So every one of us is a victim of terrorism. And you know what? We live in fear. I remember the days when you didn't have to walk through with handbag checks and whatever. I remember I wanted to drive from Kenya to Tanzania to Malawi to Zimbabwe to Zambia. I can't do it now. Why? Because of which country? Not the experts. Which country? Mozambique. Because there's a part of when you're on the road, I've been to Malawi, you literally step across, you're in Mozambique. Look at how it is. Whoever imagined that there would be terrorists in Mozambique? We are all victims. And when you live in constant fear, the result of that is that you have anxiety. If you're older, you get all sorts of other issues, and it wears you out. So the victims of terror are not just the ones who die in bomb blasts and grenades. It's all of us, because we're living in constant fear. And with those few remarks, I congratulate you. You are the Joshua generation. And never forget that you are, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Christian, whether you're Muslim, you all belong to the Abrahamic religions. You are the children, all of you, of Abraham. With those few remarks, I wish to declare, I declare it open or? Open, right? All right, thank you very much.
I think she deserves another big hand of applause. As she said, I think we'll have a generation of people who, many of us used to walk into buildings without having to be checked. We didn't feel like criminals. We didn't feel like we're subjected to any unfair treatment. But anyway, right now, I think we'd like to bring our meeting to a close. We'd like to have some closing remarks. Sorry about that. Now, as part of the launch, before we have the closing remarks, would like to just showcase something small, especially for the audience that is listening in and watching in from home. So let's kindly watch this, and then we'll have the closing remarks from Dr. Mustafa Ali. Feel free to count. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hapo tumeanguka mtihani.
in Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, Djibouti, and Somalia. Read your original 5-minute film, poem, or song and submit it for a chance to win cash prizes worth over $20,000. Win you rise to the top and be at the forefront. Then what are you waiting for? For more information on how to participate, visit our website at www.lengaugaidi.co.ke or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Terms and conditions apply.
I think before you go too far, I think let's put our hands together for everybody that's put this together, because I think they've done a tremendous job of what they've done. And with that, I think we can call Dr. Mustafa to come to the stage and give us the closing remarks. Remember, you can still follow the conversation online, check out the online properties, and be able to know exactly what is happening. Thank you. Participate. If you have any comments or views or opinions, kindly share them online, and we will see what we can do about that.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm deeply honored to join you in the launch of the 5th edition of the Lenga Ugaidi in Talanta. I still vividly recall the first when the team that was pushing for this kind of engagement, which will work to bring young people to fight terrorism and violent extremism, worked under very difficult circumstances with very minimal resources. And now seeing that you're going regional is something that we should applaud the team of Lenga Ugaidi in Talanta, and especially Epuka Ugaidi. Let's give them a round of applause. Honorable Shamala talked about Abrahamic faiths, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. These faiths have one thing in common. If you really care to read your Quran, Bible, or the Torah, it talks about shared security. And this is one dimension that oftentimes misses in the way we talk about security. Professor talked about ontological security. I'll not go into that direction, but it is that shared security, which simply means my well-being is yours and yours is mine. That my vulnerability, as long as I'm vulnerable, you are going to be vulnerable. That is shared security. It is what ontological security. We talk often about state security, human security, and state security is something that cannot overread. It's important to ensure stability. And human security, which is championed by United Nations, governments, intergovernmental organizations, all work together to ensure that that shared security is actually achieved. Today, what we see in Afghanistan, if we are not careful, we will see the Talibanization of Somalia. If there won't be that belief in caring for one another in Somalia, where each clan that are fighting one another and carrying out all the aspects that are required by the constitution in the federal government of Somalia, if they are not going to do that, including elections, including respect for human rights and law, the rule of law, then there won't be shared security in that country. And if there won't be shared security in that country, we are going to suffer in Kenya and other neighboring countries in the region. And so, very important that this issue of shared security, which we often then lose out because of instrumentalization of religion, religionization of politics, or politicization of religion. And we see that also with our politicians in this country, trying to instrumentalize religion for rather extreme narratives. And young people fall for this, pitting one class against the other. This is something that can lead to extremism. Extremism is not just about religious extremism that we see. There is also political extremism, which you young people understand best. There is always the the misuse of politics or religion to engage or to attract young people into gangs and participate in gang violence, particularly just before elections. Globally, we are fighting with two versions of extremism. And if young people, you are called the Joshua generation by Honorable Shamala, if you are not careful, these extremisms, one elected and the other one unelected. We saw fascist nationalist leaders elected into office in Europe, in the United States of America, because young people somehow have decided that they are not going to take part into clean politics. And then the unelected extremism by groups like Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda, Daesh, and the others. These extremisms are dangerous for this world, and it is our responsibility, it is your responsibility to fight this kind of extremism. I'm happy that Epuka Ugaidi organization, and I want to thank the Executive Director, Charles Ikenye, for putting together this kind of a challenge, a program, competition that will bring all of us together to realize that shared security. Honorable Jennifer Shamala, Member of Parliament, Dr. Hassan Kanenje, Professor Noami Damba, Dominic Kalia, Rehema Zaid, Clifford Omondi, institutions, Impact Amplifier, Horn International Institute for Strategic Studies, Arigato International, CSCR, Google, NCTC, Jarumi Consultancy, Foxton, and Artist 97 Band, Solo, Capital FM, also the mic, the MC, and Freedom Amwoka. All of you and those that I have not mentioned you, I want to honor you and thank you for being here today and participating in this program. Let's give all of you a round of applause. And with these very long remarks, I will hand you back to the Master of Ceremony. Thank you.
Makofi ya daktari one more time. I think we've had a very fruitful day. For those who are watching at home, from their offices, thank you very much for being with us. I think you all know the social media avenues. The reason why I'm reinforcing the social media avenues is a simple fact that that is where we can all meet, converse, keep the conversation going. We'd like to see who will actually end up being the winner of season 5. Hopefully they don't have an age cap, so some of us can actually try and see if we can still remember our talents. With those closing remarks, I think every single one of us had a voucher that were given. That was a small piece of paper. I think many of us might very rumpled it up and thrown it away, but that is actually, if you don't have one, can you just lift up your hand? We'll make sure that you can actually get one. So we'll be having our lunch in the restaurant on the extreme end of the corridor. But before we do that, we'd just like to capture some of these memories that we've had today. I mean, we've had very engaging moments. We'd like to have a short photo session with some of the people who've made this event possible. So I think I'll let Kevin come up and let us know exactly how you intend to take the photos. And from there, we can actually proceed to lunch. Thank you very much for everybody for coming through. Let's share the information that we have. I think we will also get to enjoy some of the presentations that we've had, if they could be received by email. That way, we can continue to learn from each other, grow each other, and improve on the little knowledge that we have. Remember, as they say, international relations, I remember what I was taught in class. There is no permanent friends, it's just permanent interests. So as these interests continue, let us also continue with the interest of sorting out this issue of violence extremism. As we do that, we can have our musicians come up to the stage.
Are you a filmmaker, a poet, or a musician under the age of 35 residing in the Horn of Africa? This is your opportunity to help spearhead for a safer region free of terrorism and violent extremism using your creative skills. Due to public demand, Lenga Ugaidi in Talanta is now. Are you a filmmaker, a poet, or a musician under the age of 35 residing in the Horn of Africa? This is your opportunity to help spearhead for a safer region free of terrorism and violent extremism using your creative skills. Due to public demand, Lenga Ugaidi in Talanta is now regional. We are in Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, Djibouti, and Somalia. Create your original 5-minute film, poem, or song and submit it for a chance to win cash prizes worth over $20,000 US. Will you rise to the top and be at the forefront? Then what are you waiting for? For more information on how to participate, visit our website at www.lengaugaidi.co.ke or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Terms and conditions apply. Are you a filmmaker, a poet, or a musician under the age of 35 residing in the Horn of Africa? This is your opportunity to help spearhead for a safer region free of terrorism and violent extremism using your creative skills. Due to public demand, Lenga Ugaidi in Talanta is now regional. We are in Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, Djibouti, and Somalia. Create your original 5-minute film, poem, or song and submit it for a chance to win cash prizes worth over $20,000 US. Will you rise to the top and be at the forefront? Then what are you waiting for? For more information on how to participate, visit our website at www.lengaugaidi.co.ke or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Terms and conditions apply.